Hey guys, what it do? It's your boy Supreme Uchiha the God, away from home again. Yeah, I'm here to do a quick not a review. I didn't want to do a week hero today because the chapter was underwhelming for me. So I want to talk about Genos and do something new. I never talk One Punch Man. It's something I love. I read the webtoon, the original webtoon, or webcomic, and I also read the manga. So I know a good bit about it. Watch the anime, all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Watch a bunch of videos on it too. So let me make up my own theory, my own little theorism. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna talk about Genos. That's my favorite character in One Punch Man. For a myriad of reasons. I just fuck with him heavy. But I want to talk about first Dr. Kuseno and what role I think he's gonna play in the story. Um, I think that the whole mad cyborg thing is a way that Dr. Cortez Cusanos is using Genos in order to be stronger. Now, if you recall, Genos was now I have kind of have two theories, but they're pretty much the same minus the inception of it, right? And I'll get to that. But basically, if you think about it, so Genos was told by Dr. Kusanos that his parents, that his whole village was destroyed and blah blah blah. Obviously, well, he thinks he remembers that now. I feel like because he's 90% cyborg at this stage, that memories could easily be implanted in him. So especially since Dr. Kusanos knew him since as a kid, and he's only like 18, 19, maybe 20 maximum in the show, so he's pretty fucking young. Um, so I think that creates I don't like an interesting aspect of the story. And I think when you look at somebody like Dr. Cosanos, we don't know too much about him except that he's really, excuse me, extremely intelligent. Um, and I think what we can say from this is, at least for me, um, excuse me, my theory is that Dr. Cosanos was probably responsible for the murder of Geneso's village or town, and I think perhaps he used it as a method to find test subjects. In fact, I think Drive Night potentially might be a test subject of Dr. Kusanos. Now, that I'm probably jumping the gun on that one. I'm not gonna lie, but so I'm trying to keep it to Genos. But that's just a thought that kind of came across. But I feel like Drive Night is way too advanced. But also Genos is a top 15 S rank, so But anyway, I feel like he he was probably looking for a bunch of kids, and he saw that this is a village that nobody really cares about. There's no real heroes there, and I think he sent the Mad Cyborg there to probably abduct a bunch of kids, destroy the village, and you know, I think when he discovered that a kid was somehow still alive, I think he was like, Jesus Christ, this kid, the potential of this kid, the will that this kid has to live, is because, in this world, mind manifests power, right? In a lot of ways because of a strange mutation that happened a long time ago. So, because of that, I feel it's important, I think, to think of Genos in that way. I think one of Genos's powers is his inability to die. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because of how frequently and often he's almost always dead, right? I don't think he has Zombie Man's uh, level of it's pretty late of unkillability. I don't think he's that level of unkillable, but I think he's pretty high up there, and I think he's one of those people that can come back from the brink of death. I think that's potentially his power, and I don't have too much evidence in this, but this is my theory here. You know what I'm saying? It's a theory. Um, these are my thoughts. This is where I think potentially the story might go. So what I think is happened is, Dr. Kusanos did the village thingy. Uh, Whether or not he was looking for potential subjects to test or not is isn't too relevant. But I think he stumbled upon this kid that somehow, with like barely any organs left, like just his brain and like his heart, just like a few things left, and somehow this kid was still alive. Like he managed to preserve this kid somehow, and something must have occurred to for him to even think of trying to save this kid, right? Because how could that kid be the only person to survive? So it's interesting. Maybe he knew about the kid's power, maybe not. But he obviously tested on him and made him into a cyborg. And then I think he fed him the story, whether it's true or not. He fed him the story of what happened to the village in order to keep him. Because, like, let's say if he created Mad Cyborg himself, he could easily keep the Mad Cyborg from ever showing up again. Because again, it's never been the Cyborg has never been reported since that town, and only that town he was reported in. So obviously, I feel like it's a way for Dr. Kusenos to use him to drive him to keep living. And and because he has this crazy will to keep living, in order to take revenge, he can continuously adapt and improve upon him. It's like an undying test subject, right? Almost like Zombie Man, except with robotics, and his body seems to be pretty compatible with it and seems to take it pretty well. Um, and I think that this could be in return or in response to his jealousy of somebody like possibly Drive Night. We don't know necessarily how Drive Night is or functions, but I think more than likely Metal Knight. I think it could be his response to Metal Knight and perhaps Dr. Kusenos. And Metal Knight, I can't remember the actual guy's name, but the guy behind Metal Mask, Metal Knight. I believe that they might have even been colleagues or potentially rivals at some point. And now we know those three doctors, main doctors in the story. So and one of them made Zombie Man. So so I feel like that in Kindness Kabuto, I think that I think that Dr. Kusenos made Genos as a response to Metal Knight and is using him to eclipse Metal Knight. And I think we'll never find the Mad Cyborg because I feel like the Mad Cyborg was probably an incomplete version of Genos, right? And by that, I don't mean that Genos was always a robot. I just mean that um, him discovering Genos made him convert the Mad Cyborg into Genos, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I think he tried to test out because he probably saw limitations in just a complicated, just a robot. You know what I'm saying? Those limitations in growth, those limitations in power, those limitations in survivability, those the whole relearning aspect of it, those adaptability, and so much limitations in a robot that's just autonomous a self-autonomous robot or whatever, like a self-controlling robot. There's too many limitations, and therefore I think he felt a human with a strong will and a lack of dying, the one that is extremely difficult to kill, despite regardless of how many augmentations, because we know, spoilers obviously, from the webcomics, that a lot of people can barely handle high percentage of robotics, and anybody that goes too high, they have a high risk of death, brain damage, and so many things. And Genos seems to deal with all of this so well. He's always carried out of every fight, of every battle. He's always ready to just explode his core, and yet he never dies. He just never does. He just always manages to live. He always manages to come back stronger, better, faster every single time. And he doesn't increase or grow at the same rate as like a Garo, of course, but it's always little increments. And he, from the offset, when we meet him, he's an S ranked hero from the jump. So he's obviously extremely powerful. I think demon level for sure, mid demon I think early on, and then high demon later on. And currently in the webcomic, he's way weaker. But I think in the in the manga, I think he's definitely a dragon. I think he's a low to mid dragon in the manga, and in the webcomics, I think he's a high demon at most. Now this is where I think the webcomic differentiates from the manga, and I think will differentiate from the manga. I think the plan for the webcomic, I think, was different than the current plan it is for the manga. I think the webcomic one, Genos was supposed to be that hero. I don't think that ever got stronger. But I think due to his popularity, his high popularity from the manga and the anime, I think one and Murata decided maybe we should give him a better arc, an arc that's more redemption filled. Because I feel like he was supposed to have a negative arc in the webcomic. It feels like that a lot of times. he never wins. He never really catches a break. He's always taking L's. He's always just struggling. He's always just breaking. He's always 10 steps behind, and he's even beginning to question himself a lot. He's like, damn, like everybody's getting so much stronger, so much faster, and I'm limited. You know what I'm saying? Because of this body. And I think the manga is taking the direction of he is improving. You know what I'm saying? And he's gonna have a few wins, but ultimately he's gonna fall short. And I think it's a subtle difference, but I think difference. Sorry, but I think it's one that would make it the more heartbreaking when we find out the truth. Because I think if he just took L's, and then found out that Dr. Kusenos did all this to him, it's like this man just been taking L's. Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like, it just never felt, it just doesn't, the webcomic version does not feel like he's a character that's loved, you know what I'm saying? Or that one necessarily cares about that much. Well, I think, excuse me, in the manga, he clearly is. Maybe because of Murata's influences, because he does influence, excuse me, a lot of the story. I think he's improved a lot of the things that the webcomic lacked in certain aspects. Maybe convoluted a few bits of it, but overall, I think the story is better in the manga than it is in the webcomic. But obviously, the way it's updated is ridiculous. I don't know how it comes out in Japan or Korea or whatever. But in the way it comes out here, the translated version it's a bit of a madness. I'm not gonna lie. It's so sporadic. So, but in terms of you actually read it in a row, it's spectacular. So again, anyway, what am I getting at? So I think that that's essentially the story. I think that's his arc. I think that he will discover that Dr. Crucenos at some point when he reaches, I think, High Dragon. Um, High Dragon to, like when he's reaching, I don't want to say God tier, but when he's reaching, like, because there's a huge disparity within High Dragon. You can be extremely High Dragon, and somebody like, I think, Tatsumaki is a great example. She's almost above Dragon at this point. I mean, she's pretty much confirmed above Dragon at this point. But you know so he's not that level. I don't think he's ever gonna reach that level, but I think he's gonna be pretty near it. I think he might reach Red Garo level. You know what I'm saying? Or a little bit above that. And Red Garo we know is insane. He's obviously not Awakened Garo level. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. And I think his arc is gonna end with him, because I think Dr. Crucenos is going to avoid him ever meeting the Mad Cyborg, just because I think he's going to continuously want him to be stronger. Now, I know there's a lot of theories that Genos himself is the Mad Cyborg, but you see where my one differentiate is that I don't think Genos was the cyborg that did the killing. I just believe that the cyborg that did the killing was fused into him. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. And he controls the body, and the body is the Mighty Cyborgs. But obviously, it's been upgraded so much to at this point that it's no longer that. It's just Genos. So that's my take on it. I think that's. I think if that happens, I'll be phenomenal. First of all, because I do think his arc is I think better than anything you can really do with Saitama himself. I think Saitama is an interesting character in that regards, where his arc is kind of pretty predictable. I mean, it can only really end in two ways. Either he finds somebody that gives him an actual challenge, or he just never does. You know what I'm saying? I don't really see anything be outside of that. Those two possible endings, right? A lot of other shows and characters have so much potential, open-ended potential in their arcs, and I think Genos is one of those. Flashy Flash is another one. There's so many characters. Garo is another one. There's so many characters that have so much branching, like so many branches that they could head off to, while Satama is pretty linear. So I feel like the manga would probably focus a bit more on Genos later on down the line, during the Neo Arc Association, etc., than the current webcomic has been. And I think and I think the story will end with Genos. I think Genos's um, arc will be the final arc of the series, him discovering the truth and maybe confronting Dr. Crucenos, and maybe finding out that Dr. Crucenos manned the machine that killed him. We don't really know, but I do believe my theory that Dr. Crucenos uh, probably created the Mad Cyborg and is definitely fooling Genos. Um, Now it's either that or Metal Knight did it. You know what I'm saying? I think those are the possibilities. Metal Knight could be the one that did it, and Dr. Cosenos saved him, uh, and the Mad Cyborg is really just Metal Knight, and Dr. Kusenos is ensuring that he gets to a level, or trying to get him to a level where he can compete, and it's for his own ego and battle against Metal Knight's, the men behind Metal Knight, and also for the sake of Genos, which is, I think, a more positive twist to it. It's a more lovely way of portraying the story, and then the other one, the darker route, is the one I talked about earlier. So I don't know what you guys think. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know if I presented it too well. I'm away from home. It's pretty fucking late, and I'm pretty tired. And I wanted to put out a video today for you guys, by any means. So my bad if it's not too cohesive, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And yeah, let me comment down below what you think. What's your thoughts on Genos and his theory, and where do you think he's gonna be at, or how do you think his story is gonna end or go toward? You know what I'm saying? What are you thinking? Do you prefer his webcomic story or his manga story? I'm definitely more for his manga story, because I think he's too weak in the webcomics, and it doesn't make that much narrative sense for him to be that weak. But I think the manga deals with his strength a lot better. But that's my take. It's been your boy Supreme Cheer the God. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to hit that 600 mark, and I'm out.